transparent et
Non,
de
il y a
montrer
pas
que
de
la méritocratie a primé. Will the Honorable Prime Minister undertake to table the list of persons recruited in each local authority, including their addresses, qualifications, selection scores, and the composition of the panel that appointed them?
One moment. He said selection scores. Is that what you said as well? Names, addresses, and selection. Yes, Prime Minister. Yes, Prime Minister. Can you give that kind of list?
I'm not sure I can, Madam Speaker, but I will seek advice whether I can or not. But the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, again, I remind him, he should look what happened when he was in government. The MSM model, the modus operandi of the then chairperson of Mr. Bihar, the chairperson of the LJC. He turned it into a one-man commission. All this happened under their regime.
Yes, all right. Next question. Bear in mind that anybody who's unhappy can always go to the PBAT and to the court.
Yeah.
And I think we heard that there were cases in court.
Yeah,
Bear
that I know,
in
but
mind.
my duty is to put questions in this House,
Of
Madam
course.
Speaker.
And I appreciate
Now-
that you're doing so.
Madam Speaker, concerning the board of the LGST, can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House when a chairperson will be appointed?
Being done this week, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Now, is he aware that certain recruitments and promotions in local authorities have been delayed now for almost a year?
That is absolutely not true. He just gave a list of persons who were recruited. Now, how can you say it was 1 year?
Okay. Honorable Duval. Honorable Duval.
May I ask the Prime Minister, in fact, I'm reiterating from my last PQ, there were 1,463 workers who had been terminated after working 16 months, and that contributed to their pension fund, an amount of 1,084 rupees monthly, total of 17,000 rupees. Can the Prime Minister, the Minister of to whom the subject was addressed, did not answer. Now that you are Minister of Finance, can I ask the Prime Minister whether he will see to it that these sums are reimbursed to those persons who has contributed in vain 17,000 rupees?
Prime
And
Minister.
look into this, but again,
Can you consider?
I can consider, but I will have to look into it carefully because the court said that we will write that it was right to terminate their appointments because it was unlawful.
Yeah. Question is, don't talk, Mr. Duval. I like it when you stand up. Please do that. And- yeah, of course.
Well, Madam Speaker, it follows that if it was unlawful, then no contribution ought to have been taken, therefore be reimbursed.
Prime Minister said he would look into it and consider.
Well, if we follow that logic, then they will have to refund whatever they were paid. Do you want us to refund whatever they were paid as well?
Well, anyway, no comments. Anybody? Okay, so we finished with. Yes. Oh, okay.
Now, if the former chairperson was not the subject of any formal finding of wrongdoing, will the Honourable Prime Minister reconsider the circumstances of his resignation and reinstate that gentleman?
I said,
Prime
Madam
Minister.
Speaker, I think on the 20th of April, he submitted his letter of resignation, and he said it was for personal reasons. I take it, but I could be wrong. I take it when the former leader of the MMM resigned, a lot of people resigned. Maybe that's what the reason he resigned.
We don't know. He resigned. That is what we have. Factually, I mean. That's what we have. Okay. Honorable Leader of the Opposition, thank you. Okay, time up. So now we go to questions. PMQT. Yes, Mr. Duval?
Yes, B709.
I thank the honourable member for raising this important matter. At the very outset, let me remind the House that the protection of freedom of expression and the right to privacy are enshrined in our Constitution. Any form of unlawful interception or tapping is a direct violation of the Constitution and of the fundamental rights and liberties enshrined in our Constitution. As I've reported to the House in my earlier statements on this subject, the previous government had installed at enormous cost to the public, enormous cost, a very sophisticated electronic mass surveillance system to spy on every Mauritian indiscriminately. They were spying on everyone, Madam Speaker. On you, Madam Speaker, on me, on the leader of the opposition, on the former Prime Minister, on every member of this House, including ministers of the government. The Honorable Member himself was spied upon. His father, who was a minister at the time, was also spied upon, on his family. Not only that, Madam Speaker, on the judiciary, on the civil society, on diplomatic missions, on every family in their home, and intercepting the private data. The system was intercepting in real time every digital communication, every one of them, every telephone call, every email, text, messages, social media communication of every man and woman and young person who happened to have a mobile phone or an email. And they were storing it in a secret data center for examination by their own chosen agents, handpicked, and for the purposes that had nothing to do with national security or the investigation of any crime. If you even clicked to like a social media post, like many people do, on YouTube or Facebook or TikTok, the system would secretly harvest your action and store it for their use. Madam Speaker, as I reported to the House last year, on my orders, that system was dismantled, shut down, and rendered inoperable. It was a grotesque abuse by a sinister regime intent on perpetuating their power. It was also illegal and a serious criminal offense, and I can inform the House that a criminal investigation is underway. I'm informed that arrests have been made and more will follow. I am necessarily, Madam Speaker, constrained because the amount that I can say concerning this serious, extremely serious matter. But those grave and illegal abuses of the private lives of every citizen in this country should not blind us to the need for Mauritius in a turbulent and increasingly perilous world to ensure its freedom and security are not threatened by those within or without and we want to put an end to that. The properly authorized and legitimate use of covert surveillance methods is a time-honored and necessary means of protecting the public. There already, Madam Speaker, exist provisions in our legislation under several enactments for such lawful interception. For instance, Section 56 of the Dangerous Drugs Act, Sections 29 and 30 of the Cybercrime and Cybersecurity Act, Section 32 of the Information and Communication Technologies Act, Section 25A of the Prevention of Terrorism Act, and Section 10B of the Combating of Trafficking in Persons Act. All these laws, Madam Speaker, contain a fundamental safeguard. Any telecommunication interception may only be carried out upon the application to and authorization by a judge in chambers on the basis of reasonable grounds. You must get a warrant for that. This judicial control constitutes a critical protection against any misuse, abuse, or unlawful interception. This government will act within the law, Madam Speaker. However, the House will shortly have the chance to scrutinize and debate the National Crime Agency Bill and its accompanying legislation, which together will introduce the most profound and far-reaching changes in law enforcement that our country has seen since the colonial days, even before independence. That legislation will not address the question of surveillance other than in the investigation of crime, and that only. But with the changing threats and the new law enforcement architecture to which this government is committed, and as part of the government's radical program of reform and strengthening of the institutions of our country, it will be necessary in the near future to consider new legislation. That legislation will place the use of such means in the true and legitimate interests of national security, not the personal and political interests of a particular regime, on a sound constitutional and legal footing. Careful thought is being given to the essential independent structures necessary to guarantee the proper and proportionate use of such tools to be included in the new National Security Act. Madam Speaker, let me remind the House that this government will not allow this country to drift back into an intrusive system where surreptitious eavesdropping was the order of the day instead of protecting the citizen, and where abuse of power was exercised without any restraint at all. We were elected to restore what had been compromised, that is, trust, accountability, freedom, and liberty, freedom of expression, and respect for the rule of law. We must never again return to the criminal abuses of the previous regime, which attracted such powerful and righteous indignation throughout the country.
Thank you.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, in reply to my question last year, February, Prime Minister gave a guarantee that all equipment had been shut down. Now the Prime Minister says that for judicial purposes, subject to judge's order, there is interception and monitoring. My question is to the Honorable Prime Minister, given that the states still have the capacity to intercept, it is still within the state apparatus, with all the risk of political abuse and misuse, why does he not consider it urgent and necessary to come with an oversight and accountable mechanism like is being done overseas in Commonwealth countries?
I did say, Madam Speaker, the Honourable Member is wrong. There is no system at the moment. There is none. I explained, just said that the system was dismantled, shut down, and rendered inoperable. So there is none at the moment. But what I said in my answer, that we will have to come with new legislation for the purpose of the matter that I mentioned, like terrorism, drugs, and all those things, criminal offenses.
Are we to believe that judges' orders are not being complied with by the state?
There is no mechanism to listen to anyone. That is the problem. We are trying to get the people who are at great cost, millions of dollars we're talking about, to relook, to let us see what was in that thing they are refusing for the moment. Persol is the company concerned. They haven't actually done so. I've requested that we have, instead of going to buy new equipments, we'll have to, but again, under very strict control by the judiciary.
My last question.
Yes.
There is no trust on the guarantees that have been given that the system is not being used. I will ask the Prime Minister to consider urgently, as is being done in the UK with the setting up of the Intelligence and Security Committee of Parliament, to review, which is being, it is reported to a select committee of Parliament on all phone tapping and interference and monitoring activities, as well as a legislative framework, a standalone legislation. It is done there under the Investigatory Powers Act, with a commissioner being appointed, a former judge who is appointed to ensure that there is oversight and accountability. It is ample time, does he not agree, that this be done now in the wake of the Moustache League? And I will end by this. If the former Prime Minister had no idea he was being recorded, how can this one be so sure?
Okay, Prime Minister,
I
that
didn't
is-
catch the last bit of his
Yes, it's so long.
question.
yes.
With the former Prime Minister, I didn't hear.
Was not aware
No.
that he was being monitored.
If, in view of the opacity, the former Prime Minister himself did not know he was being on tape, how can the Prime Minister know? Because there is complete opacity. The question is, please consider what I'm telling you.
Madam Speaker, it is ridiculous what the honourable members just said. It is the former Prime Minister who got this machine to be installed, and now you're saying he didn't know.
What about the oversight?
You're trying to defend the undefendable. They spied on everyone, including himself, his father who was a minister, his family. Now you're asking for open house. Security matters has to be security matters. We did say that we bring in new legislation. There is no system. You mightn't believe or you might believe. There is no system to intercept anything at the moment. It's dismantled. But we will come with new legislation.
No.
First, I'll invite the Prime Minister to consider what
No, you have to
Australia,
ask a question.
the UK and South Africa has done. Second, I haven't provided an excuse for anyone. What I am saying is, how can the Prime Minister, that is not what I said. What I said is, how can the Prime Minister guarantee, if we have had former Prime Ministers on tape in office,
You've
that it is not
already
happening
said-
to him, given the opacity? That is the question. Do not turn my words. This is not what I said.
I'm not sure what he's saying. He's saying that I'm spying on myself? I know.
Okay, next question. Next question, Mr. Apollon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. B710.
Madam Speaker, the present passenger terminal at Sir Siv Sagar Ghulam International Airport was commissioned in 2013. Thereafter, most passenger operations were transferred from the old terminal to a three-story facility adjacent to the present one. Part of the old terminal continued to be utilized for mixed aviation operational, administrative, and commercial purposes, while significant areas remain under scrutinized. Madam Speaker, with regard to Part A of the question, I'm informed by the Airports of Mauritius Company Limited that the ground floor of former passenger terminal is leased to airport stakeholders, including Air Mauritius Limited, Mauritius Duty Free Paradise, the National Land Transport Authority for office administration and commercial purposes. As regards to the first floor, it houses the Airports of Mauritius Company Limited, Aviation Training Center, the Emergency Operations Center, the Departure Boarding Lounge, serving for 4 boarding gates and State Lounge, together with associated operational and service facilities. The second floor is currently leased to Air Mauritius Limited and utilized as office space. Madam Speaker, concerning Part B of the question, I'm further informed by the Airports of Mauritius Company Limited that given the strategic location of the old passenger terminal within the airport compound, airport stakeholders have expressed interest for the lease thereof for office and commercial operations. In this context, the Airports of Mauritius Company Limited has established an internal committee to examine options to enhance the utilization of the available space.
Yes. Are you okay? Yeah, okay. Next question, third member for Rivière des Anguilles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. B711.
Madam Speaker, by virtue of Section 8(1) of the Private Security Service Act of 2004, a license or certificate granted under this Act shall, subject to subsection 2, be valid for a period of 1 year. Subsection 2 provides that where a licensee or the holder of a certificate wishes to renew the license or certificate, he shall apply to the Commissioner of Police for renewal in such form as may be approved by the latter, not later than 21 days before the expiry of the license or the expiry of the certificate. Madam Speaker, as regards Part A of the question, I'm informed by the Commissioner of Police that as at 14th of May 2026, there were 46 registered holders of private security service provider license, out of which 31 were renewed licenses and 15 were new licenses. Over the past 5 years, that is from January 2020 to 14th of May 2026, there were in all 28 applications submitted before November 2024, which were kept in abeyance by the former Commissioner of Police. According to the present Commissioner of Police, these pending applications cannot be considered due to the long lapse of time. That is from the dates of the application. The concerned applicants have been informed that they have to submit fresh applications. Since November 2024 to 14th of May 2026, 11 applications were submitted, out of which 3 have been approved and licenses have been issued, and the remaining 8 are under process. Madam Speaker, police has to ascertain that private security service provider license is issued to the right person who is expected to ensure the safety and security of people and property. Therefore, the determination of applications for private security service provider license warrants rigorous and strict compliance with the criteria set out under Section 4 of the Act, which includes inter alia that the applicant for a private security service provider license is required to publish a notice in the Gazette for 3 consecutive days. Members of the public then have 21 days to lodge any objection thereto. 2, the Commissioner of Police has to carry out an investigation with regard to the application as well as to ascertain that the applicant is a fit and proper person. 3, the applicant has to be trained in a recognized training institution with respect to security services. 4, the Commissioner of Police has to ensure that the applicant has adequate facilities to operate the private security service. And 5, upon approval, the applicant is required to furnish to the Accountant General a bank guarantee of 3 million rupees. Though these procedures are lengthy, and I agree they're lengthy, applications for licenses have to be determined within a reasonable time frame.
Yes, are you all right? Yes, Honourable Second Member for Flac Monaco. He's not here. Yeah, he's not in Mauritius. Okay. Dr. O'Neill, Third Member for Portrush South.
B713, please.
Madam Speaker, first of all, let me clarify that official foreign direct investment statistics are compiled and published by the Bank of Mauritius. With regard to Part A of the question, I'm tabling data on gross foreign direct investment flows in Mauritius from 2023 to 2025 by sector and by country of origin. Madam Speaker, the FDI flows fell from 37 billion rupees in 2023 to 33 billion rupees in 2024, before rebounding to a record high of 48 billion rupees in 2025. While the real estate sector remained the primary recipient of FDI inflows, foreign investment in the financial services sector rose markedly from 974 million in 2024 to 18.7 billion in 2025. That is the financial services. It was due to a significant investment in Afrasia Bank and by Access Bank UK. Notwithstanding this increase, higher FDI flows were also recorded in the following sectors. 1, information and communication sector from 192 million in 2024.
Bonjour à tous, de la part de One Entreprise, nous vous remercions d'être venus en grand nombre durant notre panel. Nous remercions aussi nos partenaires à RNC et Vivendi. N'hésitez pas à venir nous voir. Surtout, on a annoncé que le bloc B est totalement sold out et nous sommes déjà à 30% de la réservation pour le bloc A. N'hésitez pas à venir nous voir, réserver une visite avec nos CSC Agents sur notre mock-up unit à Sedna.